first want to open with welcoming everyone to our webinar about a new, free, and easily accessible mapping tool for everyone in Santa Rosa County. This resource was developed as a community science project under the Thriving Earth Exchange program of the American Geophysical Union. This afternoon, we're going to talk briefly about AGU, explain what's available via the mapping tool and how it's used, how to get help with it, and we'll even go through a brief demonstration. But first, this project started over a year and a half ago when the residents of Santa Rosa County were telling their stories about how natural and man-made forces were impacting their county, and they were looking for better tools to help them make the points that they needed to make and better tell their stories. So we thought we would start this afternoon by sharing some of these experiences with you. So today, here to tell you some of her stories is Northwest Florida native, advocate for the land and the people who live in it, and community leader, Dara Hardigan.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dara Hardigan, and I'm one of the community leaders involved in the concept of the mapping platform. When we were awarded the grant by Thriving Earth Exchange, thank you, Carmen, they came to us and they said, okay, well, how can we help you and what kind of community project do you need? And we said, I don't know, let's think about that. Can we get back to you? And so we collectively talked about it and tossed it around and decided that what we needed was research data and visual aids, something like presentation materials. So we came back to Thriving Earth Exchange, Tex and Edith in charge of it all, and we told her that that's what we thought we needed. And I don't know if you've ever tried to assemble all the layers of information that might be pertinent to a property, but it is no small task. There are a lot of layers there: federal, FEMA, EPA. You have the state layers, which might include buffers and wildlife and wetlands and things like that. And then you have county layers and city layers. So there's a lot of places that you can go and you can kind of get lost. And you never really know if you have thoroughly exhausted the information that you need. I'm also a licensed realtor, so I know how important it is to do your due diligence when you're moving to and buying property in an area. And there are a lot of people that are moving to this area that may be military or coming from somewhere very unlike the Gulf Coast, coastal region of the United States. So this mapping platform is a perfect one-stop site for so much of the information that might be needed. So I'm going to just share a couple of stories with you about how this mapping tool would have been very helpful if we'd had it, and how it has been helpful since we got it. About 2 years ago, there was a huge development up for approval on the peninsula near the area of East Bay, close to, well, in an area that's well known for its wetlands. And there was a discrepancy about, how much wetlands were on that property exactly. And we went to the county meeting and we tried to convince the board of the extent of the wetlands in the area. But the county, we didn't have the evidence that we needed. So the county went forward with the development as it was proposed. And if we had had this mapping program back then, we may have come out of there with a much different outcome. Because as you can see, if you look down at the bottom left of the screen, you can see clearly an area of isolated wetlands. And later in the program, they'll tell you exactly how to get that map layer. And then next to that, where you see the tan areas, in that area of the slide at the bottom, you can see the stormwater problem areas, easily accessible in this mapping platform. But on the other hand, we've had some successes. We have, if you look up in the top left of the slide, you will see a newspaper article from the Gulf Breeze Press, and where it's talking about an area in on Soundside where we had a cross connection between a sewer line and drinking water line. And I know you're saying yuck, and it was, but there were a number of parties that were responsible in that scenario, and the city was fined $1 million for its part in the sewer cross connection. Well, I went to the city council meeting, and I took with me a packet for each of the city council members, color copies. And if you'll look in the next to, on the slide next to the newspaper article, you'll see all of that green. Well, I was able to show the area where the cross contamination took place, and to convince the city council members how environmentally sensitive this area is. So they decided, instead of just paying the $1 million fine, they would do a like-kind project, an environmental project that actually has a value in excess of $1 million because of the type of area that was affected by the cross-contamination, instead of just paying the $1 million fine. So I would call that a successful use of this tool. And just last week, we had another success story. And if you look to the right, you will see a picture of Carmen Reynolds as she was standing in line, maps in hand, waiting to take the podium and address Santa Rosa County Zoning Board to advocate against increasing the density in a low-lying coastal area down by the Navarre Sound, Santa Rosa Sound. She was able to tell them that about 1/3 of this area is in the county's stormwater problem area, and based on GIS database from the county, and that almost half of the area is in a hurricane evacuation zone. And she told them that during Hurricanes Erin and Opal, the storm surge rose over this area and extended over Highway 98, and it made that impassable. So you can see how increasing the density in a hurricane evacuation area can be very dangerous when you've got congested roads that might hamper evacuation routes during hurricane evacuation zone. So with that, that's kind of the stories that I had in mind to share with you all. Practical applications for the software.
Thank you so much, Dara. And as you can imagine, it was stories like these that inspired the community leaders in Santa Rosa County to reach out to Thriving Earth Exchange originally and pursue community science. And I just want to give you a tiny background on AGU's Thriving Earth Exchange, which is a project that advances community solutions by helping scientists and community leaders work together to solve very local challenges that are related to natural resources or natural hazards. As you can see in the upper right, each project pairs community scientists with community leaders, and they're supported by AGU staff and a volunteer project manager, who is me. The goal of the project, which we arrived at, as Dara mentioned, after weeks of discussions and decisions, was to enable everyone who had a story to tell it, to become a map maker and use publicly available data to illustrate problems and solutions. So the outcome of the project is a mapping tool that anyone can use. It's free and available to all without login on any web browser. And you're going to see that link at the lower left of every slide we show from this point on. You can go out to it at any time. And it brings data that's already publicly available, but in a variety of places into one easy to use tool. No login, just a web browser is all you need. So now I'd like to introduce you to Ryan, one of our community scientists, who is a sustainability and climate resilience professional and GIS expert. He also loves working with communities to empower citizens, and he's done exactly that with this project, along with our other two community scientists, Chris and Amy. He's going to tell you how the mapping tool was structured and what they did to pull all this data together. Over to you, Ryan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Edith, for the nice introduction. I will go fast on this, but just for those of you who aren't familiar with GIS, you can think of it as a very fancy Google Earth. Something to remember with GIS is it helps tell a story and provide an overview of the data. And this tool was pretty much designed by and made by all the citizens that you see on here. Myself and the other scientists, we solicited their input and their feedback, and we helped create a tool that works for you. As Edith had mentioned, it's totally free and easily accessible. Works in all the web browsers and your mobile devices. It's maintenance free because what we are doing is every data source on there is owned by either the county, the state, or a federal agency. And they publish these feature services out. So they maintain everything and it goes into the cloud, and all we do is pull it from the cloud. So there's no way to create or alter the data through this platform. So if it's a layer that says County GIS next to it, that information is coming from Santa Rosa County's GIS department. We didn't make it, we didn't manipulate it, that's what they have on file. And really all it does is just make it easier for folks to go and explore what's available at their home or in their backyard, all in one place. It allows you to turn things off and on, and really informs citizens to empower you to feel educated and to ask the right questions. And just in closing, there's that little graphic that you'll see on the side of your screen. It essentially just explains the GIS model. Just think of it as a sandwich kind of, and you're just adding more and more toppings to find out what you're most interested in eating, or in this case, learning about. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Ryan. That's a great explanation. And, this morning, another way of thinking about this is, you could choose to go to 3 or 4 big box stores to buy one of every different thing, or you can just go out to an online ordering system and see it all in one place. And I think that's the beauty of this tool, is that it provides just a one-stop shop to the data that has been already developed and maintained and published by all of these wonderful resources. So I'm sure our participants will have lots of questions for you, Ryan, as we close the webinar, but I want to now introduce another of our community leaders, Carmen Reynolds, who is a citizen activist and retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, and she's going to walk you through the details of the project and the map. And Carmen, if you'll just let me know when you're ready for the next slide, I'll be glad to advance them for you.
All righty, great. This is a little bit about our community science project, and what Thriving Earth Exchange has done is they couple their scientific team with community leaders to address, as Dr. Wilson had said, natural hazards, natural challenges within an environment or a county, a geographical area. And we started this project, thankfully we were selected for it, and we started it in January of 2021, where we applied to participate in it and waited with bated breath to see if we made the final cut. We were notified in May that we had made the final cut, and they matched us with the scientists that had the requisite knowledge. We had that first meeting with them in May, and that was 6 of our community leaders, 3 scientists, And we started working on finding all the coordinates, exploring some of the data that we thought should be inside of this tool. And we had a lot of homework to do. And of course, Edith orchestrated that and drove that. And we had continuous homework, frequent and repeated meetings to make sure we were accumulating everything and that we had a story to tell. Next slide, please, Edith. Now, what is the actual mapping tool? And as has been described, we are neither creating nor altering any of this local, federal, and state data that is available. And in addition to those, we actually came up with some other ideas of things we would like to see in this to help you, to help our county staff and other agencies, including constitutional officers. You can turn on or off these layers as needed. And as Ryan referenced, in the lower right corner, you're going to see something, an icon that looks like a table, a layered table, and that is where all the layers reside. You can turn multiple of those on at once. Sometimes if they're really intense, you might not see the second one, so you'll have to be very judicious in your choices. And then the legend is over here on your left, and it's color coded. So if you're not sure what you have turned up when you selected the layer, it will tell you on the left side. For example, in this one, we're looking at wetlands. So all of the green is showing up because those are hydric soils. The legend on the left will tell you more about the different colors that you are seeing. The top left on your screen on your mapping tool, that's going to allow you to zoom in, to zoom out. If you ever get lost, right below there is a little home icon that'll reorient you back to where you started. And you can't see it very well right now, but in the top right corner, that is your search key. And you're going to be able to search by physical address, city and state, or you can do the parcel number without the hyphens in it. And I think we're ready for the next slide. So what is included in this mapping tool? Well, we've got some wonderful visuals over here on the right. And the first one that you see up there with all the red marks are the damaged properties from Hurricane Sally. So all of those have been plotted. In the upper right, you're going to see all the green. That was the wetlands layer that was selected there. And now we're just going to step down that column, and the triangles, the different color triangles are environmental sites that are being monitored by different agencies, whether they be Florida DEP or the federal US EPA. And as we go down, we see the national flood areas, and depending on the different colors of that blue is going to reflect whether there's a 1% chance of a flood event in a year or a 0.25% chance of a flood event in any given year. And now we're going to step to the left, and we see the gold colors. Those are the stormwater problem areas that were plugged in by the county GIS information. And if you were to want to know where all the public water supply wells, we're going to go one slide up, and those little blue boxes with the tails are the locations of all the public water supply wells in our county. So this is just a brief overview of some of the features of the layers, and the actual entirety of them are listed here on the right. So if you want to know about the zoning in an area, you're going to be able to find that. If you wanted to know the existing land use or the future land use, if you want to know about the parcels, the evacuation zones that Dara spoke about down in that property off of the Sound across from Panhandle Trail down in East Navarre. If you're curious about the retention ponds, you can select that layer and it will tell you where those ponds are in the area that you're looking. Or if you want to zoom out and look at the county as a whole, all of the retention ponds will pop up and they'll tell you whether they're county maintained or owned by FDOT for road widening. If you're curious about the subdivisions, you're going to be able to find those. Those will be outlined in red. Ryan was very helpful and put in the 5-foot contours in here. And if you're curious about the soils, you'll be able to identify hydric, partially hydric, non-hydric soils. And we even have a feature that we're working on to identify, at the request of our county commission, the 5 Mile Swamp fire destruction that occurred a couple years back. And Ryan has so aptly included on the landing page a tree link to get you to be able to see the forever chemical or PFAS locations that have been self-reported by Navy, Whiting Field and their outlying landing fields. Next slide, please. So if we're looking at all these wonderful maps, we can kind of step through them just cursorily, just by the colors. And you can see in the upper left, all of that green, those green areas, those are signifying wetlands. And I talked with you about the retention ponds. If you are looking for the retention ponds on this second slide, upper right, if you see the big blue areas also, anything blue when you're searching on retention ponds, the legend will tell you that a blue denotes that it's a county owned and county maintained retention pond. So this is very helpful if you're looking at purchasing property or you've got relatives coming in interested in locations as to where to go. All of these factors converge to make a property either viable or non-viable. And this is a tool for the residents, the staff, and as I said, even the constitutional officers to see, well, could it be near an environmentally hazardous area? And I see we've got this particular one, the last slide down here on the left. This is a retention pond that's in Gulf Breeze off of Highway 98. And you can drill down into this box. This box has approximately 2 to 3 layers. It'll tell you the pond ID, where the physical location of the pond is, who owns it, the physical parcel number, et cetera, et cetera. And this is all helpful information as you navigate and try to study either something that's coming up for a zoning board review or whatever it is that you would need to use it for. Next slide, please. All right, Edith, is this where you come in? We can't hear Edith.
There we go. I'm so sorry. I'd be glad to speak to this one, Carmen. I'm sure you are familiar as much as I am with most of these links as well. But our community scientists had the wonderful idea of putting all of the health information that might be needed into a link tree, which is simply a single website that links all of this information. Now, in the maps, you may remember this little information button. If you click on that information button in the maps, now you will get to the link tree, which has access to the mapping tool itself. If you go directly to the link tree, there's a link to get back to the mapping tool. There's an introductory how-to video, a link to a video. There's a frequently asked questions document. There's a how-to presentation with step-by-step instructions. So if you learn by looking at someone doing it, or if you learn by reading about how to do it, you have options for what to do there. Or if you want to just do trial and error yourself and look at the occasional question and answer, that is available to you as well. We also, as Carmen mentioned earlier, have a bunch of additional links to other data sets like the PFAS data, et cetera, that are now on the LinkTree. So it's just a repository for additional insight into the map and additional data that haven't made it into the map yet. Also, I'd like to point out, and we'll look at this a little bit later as well, there is a survey available. If you'd like to tell your story of flooding, Hurricane Sally and beyond, there's a survey that is being run by our friends at the Climate Cost Project that will close in a few weeks, but there's a link to a survey on the LinkTree as well. So Carmen, did I cover everything? Oh, and you can also, the other way to get help with the map, and we'll look at this a little later, is to interact with one of the many websites or Facebook groups, and we'll tell you about that at the end of the seminar. Did I cover everything, Carmen?
Yes, Edith, if you would show them one more time where they need to go to implement the LinkTree, I think that would be helpful.
This little I button in the top right corner at the bottom of the three icons below the search button. And we'll take a look at that in our next bit as well. We'll do that interactively. So this little I button, and we'll show you where that is in just a sec. So thanks, Carmen, and especially for your leadership that's really kept us focused on the important issues throughout this project. It's a true pleasure to hear you summarize all the hard work on the part of the community leaders and the community scientists that has resulted in a mapping tool that's ready for the public. So as our last little bit of how-to before we open this to questions, we'd now like to show you the map in action, because I know everybody learns differently. Some people, like to see things happen in real time. And I'm hoping what will happen is that you'll say, oh my goodness, I need to get out there and do that myself. So to demonstrate the map, I'm delighted to introduce Liz Pavlik, and she's a Santa Rosa County citizen resident for 15 years, an advocate for sensible development, and she's going to walk me through some of her favorite things to do with the map. So Liz, what I'm going to do is just click on this link right here, and we're going to go straight live to the map. So you will see it in all its, we're watching the map come up now, and it takes a minute or two, www means wait. So we're very patient with our map, but the first thing we see is this about screen. So Liz, tell me what I should do now.
All you have to do is go down and click the little blue OK.
All right.
And then we're in. Okay.
So what am I looking at?
Okay, well, it opens up always, and this is like the center of the Midway area. You can see Highway 98 up there and the water subdivision below. But right now, the only layer that is turned on is the subdivision layer. That always, that's like the when you first turn it on. So what I want to do is I want to look to see the entire peninsula, but if you could go down and turn the subdivision layers off. So that go down to the.
Okay, so to do that, do I just click on this?
You go over to
yes,
the layer
excellent.
box. Okay,
Yeah, so,
and now if you could zoom out so we can see more of the peninsula.
Okay, I'm trying not to press too many buttons while Liz tells me what to do. Okay, so I zoomed out. I just pressed on the little minus button up here.
Yes.
Is that
So I
correct?
want to see
Okay.
a little bit more, one more time, just to see a general area. This is our area that we're only about a mile wide and it's about 8 miles long. Okay, if you go back to the layers now and click
Okay.
on the
So
existing, over to
when
the
you say
layers.
layers, is that this little table thing that Carmen talked about?
Yes, in the bottom right-hand corner.
Okay.
Click on that. And then if you could click on the layer that will turn on the existing zoning.
Okay, so I don't see that right now. I'm just going to scroll down. So
Yeah, there's
do I want
quite a few. You want the zoning,
okay.
existing zoning.
Oh, wow. Okay, there it is.
Okay, so when you see our peninsula, it's mostly pink, which is single family residential. There's a
Okay,
few. So yeah, over on the left-hand side, it shows you that pink indicates that it's single family. And then if you scroll down, the gray areas are listed as other. So if you go to back over and now turn on the future land use.
Okay, shall I turn zoning off or just
Yeah,
add?
turn zoning off and turn
Okay.
future on.
Okay.
Okay, and you know what you don't see anywhere? You don't see any green. You don't see any green for any conservation area. So when I saw that, I thought, you know, this is a how we can use this mapping tool going forward. We can show that there are areas that are still not developed yet, but even though they, in the future, they want everything to be single family residential, maybe we could start conserving or preserving. Maybe this is how we move forward in using this mapping tool to show areas that could be preserved or conserved. So now zoom back in using the plus button on the top, right?
Okay.
Zoom back in. Okay, okay, that's good. Now, if you go to the search button on the top right.
Okay.
Okay, and if you put in, I didn't know this until yesterday, you just put in Soundside Drive. You don't even have to have an address, but Soundside Drive, capital Soundside, and then capital Drive.
Okay. So I need to use the proper case. That's good to
Yes.
know.
And it should.
Oh, wow. Okay. So then I just select the one I want.
Yes, Soundside Drive. Just click on that one.
Okay.
Okay, and it'll take you right to an area. So can you move down on your screen, like to the south?
Okay, so I'm gonna do what my instinct would tell me to do, which is just pick it up and grab it by clicking on my mouse. Okay.
Okay, and as you go down, if you could zoom out just a little bit more to make it a little bit smaller, just a little bit smaller. Okay. And then I want to turn, okay, perfect. Perfect. This is even showing for the future land use that the Soundside Foundation, which is you're on it right now, that shows that even that is possibly future single family. So instead of being depressed, it motivates me to want to look into things to make sure that it doesn't turn into single family. If you could go back over, turn off the future zoning on the layers.
Okay, future land use is off.
Okay, and now once that goes away, then turn on the stormwater problem area.
Okay, there we go, stormwater problem area.
Okay.
Wow.
So if you turn it on, it will show you that it definitely should not be developed. And there's an actual parcel right above it. If you want to turn on the parcel layers.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, great. So I can see how the acreage is divided. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So the bottom acreage is the Soundside Preserve, and then the 10 acres above it could be developed. But people from Tiger Point had expressed concerns about that being developed. And this is what I feel we can use as a tool to work with maybe the owner of that property to show them how important those woods are. Preserving because I forgot to even turn on the wetlands area, but I like to look at like one layer at a time, because I think sometimes if it piles up too much, you don't get to see as much.
Shall I
So
try
if
the
you turn on
wetlands
The
now?
wetlands, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Now I see the wetlands, surprisingly, not surprisingly, are right where there are. Yeah. Okay.
So it's, I think this tool, you know, there's things that we could have done in the past had we had this tool, but I think moving forward, it's going to help us in so many ways that we don't even know yet, because
Wow.
there's just so much information there, and it just depends on what person is looking for what, and it can spark some ideas. This map tool is making me so excited about working towards conserving and preserving more of our wetland areas, which will help with flooding, which will help with the native animals and, you know, inhabitants of all those wetlands, all the native life that lives there, all the special plants and trees. We see what damage we're doing, but I have hope that we can not keep going in the direction we're going. That we have the tools now to make a difference.
Well, certainly for someone like me, who's a very visual person and likes to learn by seeing things, seeing how these wetlands lay out and overlap the zoning and the stormwater drainage problem areas is just, for me, it's extremely illuminating. I'd like, Liz, if you don't mind, I'm going to experiment with what Carmen was talking about and click on that little help button, the little information button, and let's see what happens there. Okay, so that brings up this screen, and now I see this LinkTree, which I think is what we were talking about before, help and additional information. So I'm going to click on that, and there we are. So here on the, okay, and I'm fine with those cookies. Here on the Santa Rosa Citizen Coalition LinkTree is a help document, some plats, the frequently asked questions document, a link back to the mapping tool, a link to a how-to video featuring our very young community scientists training on the map, a story map, which Carmen and Ryan put together on Whispering Pines, the PFAS data that we were talking about, and this survey, which anyone listening today or anyone who visits this site in the future is welcome to fill out and talk about any flooding damage that you have had. So great, that's an easy way to get out to the help, is just to click on that little I button and then on this. So great, Liz, that's fantastic. I mean, I feel like I feel enabled. Thank you. So I'm going to take us back now to We didn't even need that slide. To this slide, which sort of summarizes all the ways that you, as a citizen of Santa Rosa County, or really anywhere, can access this map. You're welcome to simply make your own map. Go out to the tool. It's free. Anyone can log on to it. It's just like any website. It can have multiple users at once, doesn't require a login. So you can go out and make your own map. You can take the survey, and here's a direct link to the survey. And all of this information, if you aren't the kind who writes these down or clicks on the links in the chat as we're going through the webinar, all you have to do is go out to one of the many social media sites, Instagram and Facebook accounts or websites for either the Santa Rosa County Citizen Coalition, the Santa Rosa County Stormwater Runoff Mismanagement site. The Save Our Sound side has a Facebook and an Instagram page. Whispering Pines Concerned Citizens, and Flood Defenders. Each of these sites will enable you to get to these tools, to this survey, or to just ask a question through private message or by posting something on the site. And you can tell your story with the map after you've gone out and learned about the map. So at this point in our webinar, we're going to use the remainder of our time to ask for questions and answers from the audience. And I'm going to stop screen sharing so that we can be able to see each other in conversation. And I'm going to look at these questions that have been asked. And even though some of them have been answered in the chat, I'm going to ask that we go back and answer them live for those who may not have been following along in the chat. So I'm going to start with one of my favorites. I'm going to start this with Chris's question. And he says the question that always gets asked of me, and that I'm always asking of all the software I use, I often have computer problems. Can I break the program? Can I break the map? Can I mess it up if I'm using it? I think, Ryan, that one's for you.
Yeah, so no, you cannot. If you do, that means you broke the entire internet and you're a talented hacker. But no, you can't break this map. If you do get, if your computer freezes or you get lost, you can either click that little home icon that's in the top left corner of the map, or you can refresh your internet browser, or you can restart your internet browser, and it'll bring you right back to where you were and everything resets to default.
Great. Okay, I had another question that came through that was also answered online, but let's answer it in person as well. How current is the map? How up to date are these data? Who would like to take that one? Is that another one for you, Ryan, I think?
Sure. So all the data sets are maintained by the various agencies that are indicated in parentheses on the map. So you have County GIS, you might have Florida DEP, FEMA. So when they publish new information, it only takes 30 seconds to a minute for the tool to be able to pull that new information. So you're at the mercy of those who own the data. The actual satellite imagery is going to have probably the longest lag time, just because you don't run satellites over constantly. So it's the most recently available data. And actually, so for instance, if you were to go to the county's GIS website and look at all their open GIS data, you can actually find out when it was last published. It'll give you a date like January 1st, 2019. I just pulled that out of thin air, but.
Great, and I see that there was a follow-up to that directed to Dara. The question is, I'm looking at my house and the area behind my house is over a year old. I can tell because the city expanded the retention pond over a year ago and the map still shows it before it was expanded. I'd like to I might share the map again and we can pull up that location if you'd like, if you would feel free sharing an address that we could look at, or we can just zoom into that retention pond. Dara, do you want to answer that one, or do you want to take a look at the map? What would you like to do?
I'm not sure where Ann lives. If you want to just give us a subdivision, even, we can pull it up on the map. But her concern is that the source of the information has not been updated in over a year.
Yes. So I am back in the map now, if everyone can see, and I'm turning off some of the layers so that we can see the retention, so that we can see the retention ponds. There we go. And I'm zooming out a bit so that we can see all these retention ponds. And I don't know to which one she was referring.
And can you tell us your subdivision in the chat?
Ann did put it in the Q&A, Plantation Hill East Basin Retention Pond.
Okay. Plantation. I guess I have to capitalize that, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm assuming this is the retention pond we're talking about.
I would assume so.
Ann says yes, it is.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is just
Click inside the retention pond and it should give us some information.
okay,
Yeah,
there we go. So we have that information. I'm going to move that off to the side. What I was wondering is if I click off the retention pond, if I can see if the retention pond looks like that is showing to be over the entire green space. So, but that would be something to play with, and look at how that retention pond actually relates to what you know to be in existence, and would be a good. Yeah.
It step through the layers of the retention pond box for that retention pond. Click on the blue retention pond inside the retention pond itself on the map inside the blue. Yep, there you go. Now click on that and scroll down and let's see if it has any updated dates of when there were adaptations made. So scroll down on the bar. It's saying 1989 pond ID.
Yeah.
I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, here, I would say write down the pond ID and do we know where this came out of, whether it was engineering or public works, Ryan?
So this is from the county's GIS data layer. So you would copy paste, write down the pond ID number, and I would start with probably emailing the GIS folks and they can point you in the correct direction.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and hoping, Anne, that you will go right out to a web browser and take advantage of this map link and get there yourself. The other thing that I will tell you is in that address box, open in the search box here, you can enter your physical address and it will pop you up and take you right there. That's the easiest way to get to your house. I'm going to stop sharing and ask another question, and it's one that we get from time to time, and that is that there are GIS maps available. Santa Rosa County has a GIS map, and it's a wonderful map. I mean, we have worked with their staff. The leaders that you see before you have worked one-on-one with the staff and accessed a lot of layers from the map. The Property Appraisals Office has a map. FEMA has a map. The FDEP has a map. What is it about this map that's better than those? Well, I guess the answer is there really isn't anything about this map that's better than those. This is a portal to all of those maps. So this enables you to not have to go and learn one system for one map, another system for another map, and a third system to get the wetlands data overlain on your property, but to pull all of that wonderful data that has been collected and analyzed and put into GIS format, which just means graphical information systems format, which is kind of a language that all maps use to talk to each other. So these individual agencies have gone out and done all that wonderful work and keep those maps up to date to the best of their ability. And all that this tool does is pull all of those maps together into one place. So it's not by any means intended to replace or be better than all of those mapping portals. It is designed to help you access them more easily without having to learn 3 or 4 different systems. So I hope that answers your questions. Yes, ma'am.
Barbara wants to know if there is a LiDAR layer. Ryan?
I wish. The LiDAR data we start to look for very early on. That part of Florida was excluded from the latest LiDAR survey, and the LiDAR data that is available is A, old, and B, it's not actually hosted as a web feature service. So there was no way for us to pipe the data in the way we are with the data that you see on the map.
Okay, thank you. That answers the question.
But I see where Barbara Albrecht is going. She happens to be the watershed coordinator for approximately 6 counties in the panhandle of Florida. And what I have been sending to her are all of these pollution notices as late as today of 16,000 gallons of raw sewage from an entity over in Escambia County. So I see kind of what she's thinking about. If all of these spills can be populated and categorized according to volume visually, maybe the estuary committee, that could be a grant submission, Barbara, to get them to approve that, and maybe work with Thriving Earth Exchange to develop something visual similar to this, so that you can track and make your arguments for clean water, because we're supposed to have these pristine touristy waters, but even the oysters can't survive.
And I would invite everyone to, again, continue these conversations. I noticed that one of our community scientists, Amy, posted a note to Anne in the chat that the retention pond layer was last updated in 2021. So there's always, a little bit more information. So please, we want to also let you know the recording of this webinar will be available via some sort of YouTube or other easily accessible channel a few days after we close the webinar, and we intend to send that link out to all of the registrants. So this information will all be available to each of you who is registered for this webinar in that format. But it will also, again, all you have to do is reach out to any one of the organizations that we have talked about: Save Our Soundside, Whispering Pines, Santa Rosa Citizen Coalition, on social media or on their web presence, and they will connect you with the link to the map, answer any questions that they can, or point you in the direction of those who can answer those questions. So I just want to emphasize that while we are putting a lot of links in the chat, for those of you who are following that, you're welcome to go out and link to the map now, link to the LinkTree, all of that. But please be aware that all of this will be available. We'll send you the webinar link and the webinar recording link, and we will also make these resources available to you in all of the online presence that the community leaders you see in front of you are working so hard on. So I'm going to check one more time for any other questions, but then I'd just also like to use the last 2 minutes of our webinar to ask each of our panelists if you have one last word before we sign off.
I just say thank you to everybody. This has been fun.
Thanks to
Great
everybody
experience
who
to learn.
attended.
It's been a lot of hard work, but we've had a lot of good guidance and excellent scientific help, and we are just so grateful and thankful to be able to bring this to our community, and that we were selected as one of the projects. And it's been a lot of hard work, but nothing worth having is easy to accomplish.
Thank you, Carmen. That's a wonderful last word. I did see a question, how can other counties get this kind of mapping tool? And that gives me the excuse in the last minute here to say that I know Ryan made it look easy, and it's not, but this software is universally available, and the capabilities to put together this sort of mapping utility is out there and available to the public. And if anyone is interested in learning more about how community science can help you advance these sort of projects, please feel free to contact us at Thriving Earth Exchange, which is, there's just Google it. There are websites, there's social media. And if anyone would be interested in looking at a project like this, it's very easy to apply with Thriving Earth Exchange and get your own community science gig going on. So with that, I'm going to close the webinar, and we will make the recording available to each of you who registered. We thank you so much for sticking with us for an hour, and we hope that one of the ways that we offered to learn about the map will stick with you, and that you will go right out as soon as you close your Zoom browser and click on the map. Thank you all so much.
Spread the word.
Bye.